So in this video I'm going to be talking about my go-to art supplies, and someone actually recommended to me to make this video when I put out a message on YouTube just like asking what sort of things you want to see, what kinds of videos you want to see, and someone suggested for me to talk about my go-to art supplies. And by go-to I mean things that I would always want to have in my pencil case, things that I use all the time, things that I can't really live without. And the cool thing about art supplies is that every artist has their own preferred tools. Everyone has their own collection of things that are essential to them. And a lot of things are common among artists, and then some artists have a couple of things that not everyone would have, like a couple unusual objects maybe, but a lot of artists have similar sort of tools. I'm going to show you mine. And the first thing I wanted to talk about, I actually lost it, which is very sad. I haven't seen it in a couple weeks, but basically it's just a type of mechanical pencil. And mechanical pencils are one of my favorite art supplies ever, just because of the really small end that it has. And the one that I lost is actually called the Mars Tecnico pencil, and it comes with 2mm lead. I'll show you what the lead looks like. The lead actually looks like this. So basically it's the size of what would be in a pencil, but it's in a mechanical pencil, so you can keep clicking it. You never have to sharpen it. It's always there. So it kind of takes the benefits of a normal pencil and puts it into the convenience of a mechanical pencil. And mine has gone and I have to buy a new one, and it's like $10, but it's definitely worth it. If you love mechanical pencils but sometimes think they're a little bit too narrow, it's the perfect tool, and I'm so glad to have it. Well, I don't have it, but I will get a replacement. Another thing that I've had for years and years and years is this Staedtler Mars eraser, Mars plastic. It's basically an extendable eraser or a click eraser, and I have two of these actually, and I have some refills for the erasers. It's just really easy to have a finer point to erase things with. It's something I always make sure I have with me. It's my favorite eraser of all time, especially since I sketch kind of small, so the areas I have to erase are pretty small anyway. I also keep a regular eraser with me just for like the larger areas, but this thing is amazing. There's also smaller ones. There's brands that come with smaller erasers. There's electric ones. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of click erasers, and I would definitely recommend getting yourself one if you don't have one, because it's very, very useful. Another kind of eraser I always like to have with me, and this is the strangest eraser I've ever had. It's just so funny to me that it exists, just something that's so malleable, because when I was younger I had no idea what these things were, and I would always throw them away when I got them in kits, because I'm like, is this clay? It doesn't really sculpt very well. But this thing is so useful. It doesn't leave any shavings. It's really good for lightening drawings. I like to make it into kind of like a smooth shape and then roll over drawings to kind of lighten them before I paint them. So if I did a pencil drawing before I went over with watercolor, then I would use this to kind of lighten it and then put the watercolor on top. So this is just a really, really neat thing to have. I don't use it all the time, but if I need it and I don't have it, then I'm very sad, because it's useful for a lot of like specific things. Another one of my go-to art supplies is this Pentel Aquash water brush, or just basically any water brush. And what you do is you fill the reservoir here with water, and it comes at the end on its own as you paint. So it's like having a portable water and paintbrush with you at all times, and it makes painting on the go very, very, very easy and convenient. And once I got this, I've always kept it in my pencil case because it's just super useful. This is another one of my favorite art supplies ever. It's the Sakura Pigma fine brush marker, and it's really easy to control. It has kind of like a stiff bristle to it, so it has some resistance. They're a little bit on the pricey side. They're not super pricey, but it's kind of annoying when I have to replace them because they're more than I would like to pay, but you have to pay a price for quality, I guess. They're waterproof. Yeah, they're waterproof. You can get some really nice lines with it, and it's just a nice sort of like travel brush pen. I use it for tons of stuff. It's one of my favorite things. And every time I run out of it, it reminds me just how much I use this thing. So I would also recommend trying out this. I also love using ballpoint pens to sketch. They're just so easy to find, they're so accessible. It's really easy to get a variety of different weights of strokes. So you can sketch really lightly and you can sketch really, really dark. They're waterproof. They glide on pages really nicely. You can get some cool hatching. They're just a cool, they almost behave like a pencil that you can't erase, so they kind of have that sort of quality to them, I guess. So ballpoint pens are really, really fun to use, to do sketches and to use in sketchbooks and to just play around with as an art supply. So most people have these lying around in their house. I would recommend grabbing one and putting it in your pencil case if it's something you want to try that you haven't tried yet. Something that is a go-to art supply of mine. I love using water-based markers in my sketchbook, and I've had this pack for so many years. I won them online a while ago, but they're basically watercolor brush pens, and they have this sort of bristle end to them. You can tell this is so stained because I use it all the time. But I use these in my sketchbook only, pretty much. And if I'm sketching and I want to drop in some color, I'll pull out this pack and just add some color, add some water, mix them together. It's a really fast way to add some color to your sketchbook without it bleeding through the page. So I use these all the time. I'm always grateful to have these in my desk. Another go-to art supply is any colored pencil. Anything that has color that you can sketch with that you can kind of erase. So these can be the Pilot Color Enos. This one's pink, but it's empty, I believe. This is a Prismacolor Color Ray. So those are the two most common colored pencils that I've seen people use. They come in green, blue, there's all different kinds. There's also these ones called Ticonderoga. Let me see if I have it. I think they're cheaper. Yeah, here's one. None of these erase perfectly, but they erase a little bit, and that's what makes them good for using as underdrawing, so you can go over it with darker stuff. They also can just be like played around with in sketchbooks. I always like to have one of these with me. It's always nice to have a separate color just floating around in my sketchbook. Watercolor for me is essential. I use watercolor all the time. It's the most versatile thing. I love watercolor. It's so fast to just lay down some color in your sketchbook. I use it in illustrations all the time. And the palette I use is the Meeden watercolor palette. This is a really, really common palette. I see a lot of people have it because it's on Amazon and it's just easy to get if you have an Amazon account. And watercolor is just a really, really useful art supply. I use watercolor all the time. It's a real staple for me. These stickers are getting a bit dirty. I love the bright blue of the case. I don't love how this kind of falls down. I always need to prop it up in order to mix things on a level surface. That was really loud. But watercolor is great, and also gouache. I kind of use them like interchangeably, but gouache is like more opaque than watercolor. It's meant to be kind of used as paint, but you can also water it down. So what I meant is it's meant to be used kind of opaque. You can use gouache completely opaque, or you can water it down. Watercolor has to be watered down. They work really well together. I love gouache for like going over stuff and fixing stuff. It's one of my favorite art supplies as well as watercolor. So these two things are really great together. And my go-to sketchbook, the sketchbook that I use all the time, is called the Strathmore Vision Mixed Media Sketchbook. This one doesn't have a cover on it, but I can easily say it's one of my favorite sketchbooks I've ever used. I filled 2 of them, and I want to grab another one once I'm done the current one I'm working on. It just has really nice paper in it. There's a lot of pages. You can customize the cover because it comes with this steel blue thick cover on the front. And I just love this sketchbook. I know a lot of people don't like spiral bound, but I honestly do. I like the spiral. I don't really care how it's bound as long as it lies flat. It's good for me. So I would recommend this, but you might prefer a different brand. This is just my personal favorite. So those are all of my essential art supplies that if you got rid of all the art supplies I owned except for those, I would probably be fine, because those are the things I use all the time. I use them the most. I always make sure they're in my pencil case. I could even narrow it down to just a mechanical pencil and an eraser and watercolor, and that would also work out really, really nicely. But these art supplies are my favorites. Let me know what your go-to art supplies are, because I think it'd be cool to see what other people can't live without. If any of my go-to art supplies are the same as yours, please let me know, because that'd be really cool. There probably are a lot of people that use these things all the time. They're my go-to art supplies for a reason, because they're really versatile and they're super useful to me and to the kind of art that I do. None of this is sponsored, and not that it would seem like it's sponsored, but if you want to see any of the stuff I mentioned, I'll link everything in the description as best as I can, so you can check there if you're curious about anything or if you didn't quite catch the name. So thanks so much for watching, and thanks to the person who suggested me to make this video. I think it's cool to kind of see what other people use, and maybe by reading some of your comments I can add a couple things to my pencil case as well. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.